What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/IDontWorkHereLady. Alright guys, this story's called Me versus the Harpy of the Isles. So, I get asked for help quite often while doing my grocery shopping if I stop by after work. It doesn't matter which grocery store, except for Aldi's. At this point, I am kind of used to it, and honestly, most folks are rather polite and nice about the mix-up. But sadly, that is not always true. It is almost always while I am cruising an aisle, eyeballing the shelves for what I want or might want, and one of my fellow shoppers asks me for help. Now, most of them apologize and are polite about it. If I know the store I am at the time, I will actually help them or help them find an employee. If they are rude, I typically just ignore them and go about my business, and they cart off in a huff. Like some of you, I've had folks get irate with me, but only once to an extent where I had to explain to a floor manager what was going on after they tried to berate me for being rude and wound up talking to the store's manager, who let them both know they were being stupid. This stems from my work uniforms. I work for a guard company, and a lot of their uniform shirts are gray. I've only had this start happening when they started to switch to using our newer polo-style shirts, which only have a small logo over the left half of the chest. The old uniforms had a large visible patch on the left shirt sleeves. The ensemble is complete with my charcoal gray work trousers and my black work shoes. Apparently, quite a few folks think I look like some sort of manager and stop me to ask for help. For me, this usually happens at Hy-Vee. The worst was an occasion where both a random Karen and a junior manager both thought I worked there. It started out like most of my post-work shopping trips. I'm cruising down the aisles looking for what I want for a few meals. I have a big, obvious shopping cart, my personal coat tucked over the bars, and am occasionally selecting items to put into my cart. I have no obvious or overt grocery store equipment in my cart or on my person. I am at it for about 20 minutes, and while I'm cruising down the pasta and rice aisle, I feel someone staring at me rather intensely and notice a random woman standing at the end of the aisle, glaring at me and tapping her foot with her arms crossed. I am at least 30 feet away. There is ample room to go by me, and I have not encountered her before. I don't really look at her again until I notice her move up the aisle a bit out of the corner of my eye and tapping her foot louder and making that obnoxious ahem noise that makes you want to box their ears to teach them some manners. I made the mistake of making eye contact while looking over and looking confused. At that point, she stomped up to me and stood there, hands on hips, trying to glare me down. She is starting to creep into my personal bubble, and I am not fond of strangers invading my personal space at random, so I step behind my cart to put something between her and me. This apparently only makes things worse. Her death glare intensifies, and I can tell she is working up to a shrieking fit, with huge eyes, flared nostrils, and even a foot stomping. I decided I didn't want to imitate a Grecian hero and fight off an angry harpy, and moved to swing my cart around to go somewhere else. She grabs my cart before I can get turned around, forcing me to confront her. Normally, I would keep my cool and talk my way out of it, but I am exhausted from a 12-hour shift and dealing with my own personal workplace problems, like trying to train a new technophobe guard who literally got lost walking in a straight line. My temper is slightly frayed, and my mental and emotional energies are at a low ebb. I let a bit of my temper leak out. I told her to let go of my damn cart, get out of my way, leave me alone, and go bother someone else. I yank my cart free briefly before she grabs it again and begins the show. She literally shrieks and then starts screaming how I have to help her. It is my job, and she will go get a manager if I don't apologize and do what she says. I tell her I don't work there and I don't have to do squat and to get lost. She shoves my cart at me and storms off, hollering about how she will get a manager. With her gone, I make good on my opportunity to escape to continue shopping. I was figuring that the supervisor would search for an errant employee and would not find any among their own to be at fault, and it would become a moot point. I was apparently sorely mistaken. Another 10 minutes into my shopping excursion, and the Karen storms up the aisle and a junior manager in tow. She is looking vindictive and triumphant, and the junior manager is looking annoyed and already glaring daggers at me. I roll my eyes as they walk up, as I know what is going to happen. The Karen then proceeds to holler at volume how I wouldn't help her and how I was rude and should be punished or fired. I just start shaking my head. I have never seen this guy before, and I shopped at the store on a regular basis because it was on my way home from work. I figured he would recognize me and tell the lady to leave me alone. Instead, the little turd proceeds to dress me down and berate me for not helping a customer, and that I would get a negative review on my performance evaluation, and that I would have to clock out and go home. Needless to say, my temper was climbing rapidly, and I was honestly, seriously considering giving him an earful of what my drill instructors called colorful euphemisms of encouragement for performance. I stared for a minute with my best, "You are both fudging idiots." Look, I am not wearing any uniform like anyone else in the store. I have a name badge with my picture, name, and company I am currently contracted to as a guard. I look nothing like anyone in the store. And even the lanyard my ID is on has the company name on it. It is a different color than the ones they use. I looked at both of them square in the eyes each and said, "No, I don't owe either of you jack crap. I don't take orders from people I don't work for, and certainly not some random obnoxious woman harassing me while I shop." I am managing to keep myself mostly in check rather than lighting them up, but I know that won't do me any good. The Karen stares open-mouthed, her gaping maw like a hideous drowning deep-sea fish pulled from the slimy depths vacant, buggy eyeballs. The junior manager looks positively stunned and starts getting red in the face. I can tell he is about to unload, and the Karen is looking pretty smug with herself. I know they are likely going to double-team me if I don't cut them off. Before he can do his impression of Mount Vesuvius and bury us all in the ash of his blind stupidity, I cut off his brewing tirade. I tell him to look at my uniform. Look closely. I asked him if anyone in Hy-Vee wears gray polyester polos with my company's name on the chest. He looks briefly stunned for a moment. I then ask him if he has ever seen me working there before. I can see the volcano that was building has gone and the hamster is starting to crank up the wheel. I then showed him my ID badge and asked if this looks like it said Hy-Vee anywhere on it. His bubble of confusion pops, and he has clearly realized he has made a mistake. Instead of apologizing, telling the Karen to leave me alone, he doubles down on the stupid. He proceeds to scold me for not being helpful and demanding that I apparently do his job for him. I explain I don't have to, especially when someone is being rude and harassing me while I am shopping, and especially when he is responsible for helping customers and not me. He didn't like me telling him he could have just as easily helped her, sent her on her way, and then come to find whoever was causing the problem rather than creating a public scene. I am about to head for the customer service counter, find the store manager, and get the bozos to leave me alone, when I spot said store manager cruising down the aisle because someone had told him someone was yelling and causing a commotion. I didn't know this until after this had been resolved, so I waved him over, trying to not let my anger leak out too much more. This guy knows me on site as I showed up often enough, and I sometimes chatted with the staff while shopping. He greets me politely and asks what he could help me with. I then point out the Karen and his idiot employee and explain how they are both harassing me. He puts up the stop hand until I am done to cut them off from interrupting. He gets this fairly annoyed look and turns to his wayward junior and tells him to go wait in his office. He then tells the Karen to leave the store because she has harassed other customers before. She tried to bicker and argue, but he cut her off and wouldn't let her lay any of her bad behavior on anyone but herself. He had to threaten her with the cops before she left. He apologized and I said it was no big deal, and he walked with me to check out and made sure the Karen wasn't lingering and had indeed left. She was apparently banned from all local Hy-Vees for 2 months for her bad behavior. I came by the next week and the store manager found me while I was shopping and explained that the employee had been promoted to a junior manager at the company's request, but had been screwing up by the numbers. He apologized for the mess, but I was cool with it. No harm, no foul. Junior screw-up was suspended that night and then fired the next week. Apparently, this was the straw that broke the camel's back. I still shop there because aside from one-off incidents, most of my trips went well. Okay, well, junior manager, what a freaking doorknob. Alright, this story's called Not My Patient. Not exactly an I don't work here, but she was totally complaining to the wrong person. Some years ago, when I recently got hired in my current hospital and was assigned to the ER, I am a general practitioner, I had an encounter with a woman who refused to understand that not any person with a scrub and a white coat can treat a patient. To give you an idea of the setting, the ER observation unit was a giant square room with around 20 beds in total, separated by curtains. In the middle was the main counter where me and another doctor had our computers alongside the whole nursery team. General practitioners like me were in charge of patients that have not been hospitalized or being treated by another service. Nevertheless, because our unit had the most amount of beds, it was not uncommon that some patients who were not our responsibility were assigned one till they could go to the correct unit. It was 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Me and my coworker had just ended our round and were updating the medical records when a woman, let's call her Louisa, came to the counter.
Excuse me, you didn't check my dad and we've been here for 2 hours.
I'm sorry. What's the bed number, please?
109?
Let me see in the system. Oh, I get it. Sorry, ma'am, but it says here that your father's being treated by the internal medicine group. I'll call them to see when they're coming.
Thanks.
I ask one of the nurses if she can call the internists to let them know they have a pending evaluation in our unit, and then continue with my work. 20 minutes later, Louisa comes again, asking if I could see her dad. Is there something wrong? If a patient in my unit decompensated, I could treat him even if I wasn't his assigned doctor.
No, he's fine, but no one has come to see him.
I will try again. This time, I personally call the internal medicine office and tell an internist about the patient in 109. He says he will be there after finishing floor duty. To make the story short, for the next 4 hours, I have Louisa coming over and over and over and over every 20 minutes to see if I could attend her dad. I repeatedly told her no and tried to contact his doctor multiple times by calling, sending a nurse, and even going to the internal medicine office myself, only to be rebuffed because they were busy. I think both Louisa and I were in our last nerves when the final clash occurred. 12 o'clock is lunchtime for me, so I got up from the counter and was midway to the exit door when Louisa jumped in front of me, like a literal jump. It was quite hilarious in retrospect.
Where are you going?
Lunch?
You can't go. No one has seen my dad.
Ma'am, I already told you a dozen times that he is not my patient. I have tried multiple times to get his doctor here, but he won't come. I can't do anything else.
Then why the heck are you here if you can't do some crap for someone sick? He is going to die just because you are lazy.
That's not what's happening. I don't even know what your dad has. I knew the main diagnosis, but not all that could be attached.
See? You are useless. That's why health is so screwed. Useless doctors like you stealing our money and doing nothing.
Listen, woman, you don't have to be—
Do something or I will sue you.
Fine, but shut up for God's sake! This may not sound serious, but by treating a patient's family like that, I could have been in a very, very big problem. We are taught to be tolerant to the maximum point, and even then, exploding like that is not good. Also, keep in mind that all the shouting had attracted a lot of attention, and at least 10 or more people saw the scene. That would be a fun talk to HR. Louisa was as shocked as I was, but I decided to take the opportunity to tell her to follow me, and she complied with no more shouting. I guided her to the internal medicine office and literally shoved her inside, telling her they were the guy she needed to talk to. According to the grapevine, the nurses, it was like if I had thrown a hungry coyote in the hen house. Total chaos. After eating something and calming myself down, I came back to my workplace, and surprisingly enough, Louisa was there waiting for me so she could apologize. We both understood the situation has been very stressful for the both of us, and it got out of our hands. No complaints were made, and luckily no one else reported me. So my indiscretion was luckily forgotten before it went higher up. Her father was moved to the internal medicine floor, so after that, I never saw her again. So you could say this was the happy ending of this long story. Thanks for all who got this far. Also, thank you, medical professional OP, and just being a pro at medical stuff. Anyway, that situation just sounds incredibly frustrating for both parties. I could tell Louisa probably wasn't a bad person or an entitled person, really. Just like they said, it was just a bad situation, an annoying situation, and the OP was the only person they could probably talk to, or that they knew that they could complain to.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.